I need you to come in.
What's the job?
PGCQ Quarterfinals streaming a path to LCS. Assemble your team. The fate of amateur depends on it.
I accept. Let's go!
I'm in.
Welcome to this summer blockbuster event here on the Path to LCS stream. Of course, it is the quarterfinals. My name is Hawk. I am joined by RMC, but I have a very important question for all of you. Are you ready for Trance? Because that is going to be our guest today. How are you doing, Trance?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, it's amazing to have you on. We're here for another day of Proving Grounds circuit qualifier action here in the summer 2022 split. And I mean, what a time it's been. We're through the group stage now. We're into the quarterfinals. Of course, the quarterfinals are a best of 3 format all the way up through the semifinals, where then in the finals we will have a best of 5 match. So lots to look forward to here today. And as we look into these quarterfinals, we can pull up some of these teams onto our screen and maybe get to take a look at these top 8 teams that have made it this far. We do have Group A and B here on the screen. Of course, it was 100 Thieves next and the Cincinnati Fear that were able to advance alongside Group B, where Jake's Kittens and AoE Ginger Turmeric made their escapes. And RMC, I mean, we saw some insane series yesterday with those 2 elimination matches. Cincinnati Fear managing to take down Maryville, a team with a lot of pedigree. And what do we make of all this?
You know what, Hawk? I wouldn't even call this an escape here. It's a triumphant entry into the quarterfinals. I mean, sure, it was scrappy for Fear, right? But I think Fear has played the maximum possible amount of games in the group stages, 9 games so far. They've got a lot of practice. So I'm curious, to see how they start performing now in the playoffs, where things get a little bit dicier. And for Ginger Turmeric on the other side, of course, they're the opposite, right? They kind of 6-0'd their way through, or sorry, 6-1 their way through the group stages here. So my math is off. I'm not even going to bother trying to correct that. But yeah, they're looking pretty good coming in, and we never quite know what to expect from them either.
Yeah, for sure. Never really can know what to expect. Of course, then escaping from Group C and D, we do have 4 more teams that were able to make their triumphant entrance, as you said. AoE Esports and Team Pending out of Group C, as well as the Evil Geniuses Prodigies and Taco Gaming. 3 of these teams were definitely mainstays in the PGCQ tournaments in the spring. But Team Pending, with 3/5 of the reigning CLOL champions, also making their appearance. And Trance, any thoughts about these ones?
I'm really excited to see AoE play. They've been kind of popping off, and I want to see them push it.
Awesome. Well, we will get to see them later on in the stream. That'll be our second match of the day. But as we do, take a step back. There are these 8 teams now, best of 3 once again to get into the semifinals. And as we look towards this bracket, it is going to be first match of the day, Jake's Kittens up against Cincinnati Fear here on the path to LCS. Over on Academy, it will be, I believe, 100 Thieves next up against Taco Gaming. So be sure to check that one out as well. But we've got some stock matchups for you all day today. Be sure to stay tuned. However, before we, get into all the gameplay, all the technicalities of these teams, it is, of course, the summer blockbuster. Summer's a time where all kinds of fun movies can come out of all different genres, and I feel like there are 8 kind of major film genres, maybe, and 8 teams in our quarterfinals. So throughout the day, we've got a little activity planned at RMC and Trance. I'm going to be having you guys on the spot where we have 8 teams, 8 genres, and we have to tag each team to a movie genre based on, I don't know, maybe the way they play, the players that they have or whatever. So I'm going to bring up the two teams that we have first on our stream today. First, we have Jake's Kittens, and then we have Cincinnati Fear. Trance, I'm just going to go to you first. How are we tagging these teams? What genre are we thinking for Jake's Kittens?
Jake's Kittens. I'm going to have to give them action. I really want to see Prismal. Let's go.
Okay. All right. So yeah. Prismal making a ton of plays around the map. RMC, are you in agreement, or are we're moving it around?
Okay. It's funny who I had for action here, but I'm actually going to put Jake's Kittens as horror, because when I look at their statistics right now, they look like the scariest team, and they're starting to look, a little inevitable there.
Interesting. So you're going to put Jake's Kittens in horror instead of Cincinnati Fear, the team that is literally named after Fear.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we got to come to an agreement here. So we got Jake's Kittens. We're between horror. We're between action. Remember, only one team can go to each genre. So, I guess does that make me the tiebreaker? Is that how we're gonna do this? I don't know. Or are we gonna go back and forth on this a little bit more? Okay.
I'm not a happy tiebreak, Hawk.
All right. Yeah. I guess I'll be a tiebreaker. Yeah. All right. Jake's Kittens. I'm gonna put Jake's Kittens into. You know what? RFC, I'm going to subscribe to it. I'm not going to go for the one of putting Cincinnati Fear. I'm not, just because I don't know who else I would have for horror, because I had Cincinnati Fear as my horror. But you know what? I'm going to put Jake's Kittens there. Jake's Kittens, they are our horror movie. But then that does bring us, of course, to the team that is named after Fear itself. Trance, what about these guys? I know I couldn't get you on action. I'm so sorry. I feel like we got a lot of action teams. Maybe it's Fear. Maybe there's somebody somewhere else. I don't know.
If I were to put them for any of those, I think I would put them for drama.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just been a lot going on, especially for what's been coming up in the tournament, so we'll see how that goes.
Fair enough. RMC, are you in agreement, or?
I actually had Fear under action, which was kind of troll. But you know what? I'm down to put them in drama with Trance. I think Fear is a very flexible team. They can go lots of places there. So yeah, I think drama would be good.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to subscribe to drama as well, because again, I feel like we have a lot of action teams, and funnily enough, we have my action team coming up later on, so we'll get to see that too. But I can subscribe to Cincinnati Fear being the drama team. I mean, I feel like in terms of drama, like it's not like the negative kind of drama, but they have had a very tumultuous road so far this year. I mean, it's important to remember that this is the larger part of the no team roster that ended up winning PGCQ2 in the spring. Now they're coming in on the redemption arc here in the top 8. I feel like that segues us perfectly into our next segment, which is let's take a look at the matchups for today and start breaking them down for our audience. RMC, we've got some good ones queued up. We already went over this a little bit, but Cincinnati Fear up against Jake's Kittens. What are we thinking?
Oh, man. I think, first off, we have to acknowledge that there are going to be some roster change-ups for both of these teams here, because both teams are going to have emergency substitutes in the jungle position, and that changes this completely. If you had asked me without subs, let's say, very different playstyles, Jake Kittens heavy favorites. But we've got Dunks coming in for Aaron for Jake's Kittens, and Goo coming in for Trickster for Cincinnati Fear. And suddenly, the team cohesion coordination becomes, I think, a bit of a big question here. Which team can coordinate with their junglers better?
Yeah, very true. And that will be a huge narrative point as we get into these teams today, and definitely something to keep our eyes on. We'll have to see if that has influenced our caster predictions, because, of course, we do like to reach out to our talent, see what they think. And wow, oh my, we are looking very one-sided on all of these. Maybe the jungle predictions will throw it off. I don't know. Trance, what do you make of this?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to choose for the other guys. So Jake's Kittens for this one. I definitely am choosing Jake's Kittens. I really think Ryoma and Prismal, the lads, are gonna take it home.
All right, fair enough. I mean, hey, it's important to note Travesty predicted Cincinnati Fear yesterday and was the only one to do so, going 4-0 on predictions on the day.
True.
Also one of only 2 casters that picked Team Pending. So, if the formula is true, maybe Travesty has the script in his hands, and Taco Gaming and Cincinnati Fear might pull up some minor upsets. But either way, I think it is fair to say that this top 4 of 100 Thieves, EGP, Jake's Kittens, and the main AoE roster are looking like the powerhouse teams so far this split, but that is not to say that upsets can't happen. So we're talking about those jungle emergency substitutions. Unfortunately, Aaron and Trickster not being able to play. We do have Goo and Dunk, as you said, RMC. That does change the dynamic, because as we sort of got into, Cincinnati Fear and Jake's Kittens are 2 teams that I think we will all agree they play differently around the jungle role. Cincinnati Fear, they like to have their jungler play more towards their super strong lanes, whereas maybe Jake's Kittens likes to play more towards their own jungler. So, RMC, the question I'm going to pose to you is, if we're swapping up the junglers now and sort of changing up that playstyle, does this sort of scenario maybe favor one team or the other?
Yeah, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I think for Jake's Kittens, one advantage to them is that they are used to playing with a newer jungler. This is Aaron's first competitive split, so Jake's Kittens had to kind of work around a newer jungler in the first place and has done amazingly well with that. But on the flip side of it, Jake's Kittens probably will suffer a little bit more here, just because we've seen them get better with the coordination. Back in the group stages, we saw how clean their early game was with Aaron here, and having Dunks come in without the same level of practice is probably going to hurt them harder. Whereas Cincinnati Fear, like we said, Trickster doesn't get pandered to as much by the lanes. Trickster has to go and gank the lanes instead here. So with that sort of swap up, I think it's easier to have a substitute jungler come in and just play for the lanes. Your lane still plays strong. So I expect that Fear might find a bit of an advantage in this situation.
Right, especially because, I mean, if for anyone that watched the games yesterday, Cincinnati Fear up against Maryville, Sketch dreams, putting the dreams of his team on his back in that series, I think is fair to say. Playing the hyper carries, and so much of the focus for this team was around there. And I feel like, yeah, if you're coming in as a substitute jungler, like, gank bot lane, see what Sketch can do, that's, I feel like, somewhat a foolproof strategy, right? And to your point, Jake's Kittens, they brought in Aaron, this new young jungler, to the scene and adapted so well to his talent. But it is still, you're missing, I feel like, a big cornerstone potentially of that team. We will have the rosters come up on screen here so we can take a look at everybody that will be playing for us, not just those junglers. Because, of course, while the jungle matchup will be important, I don't think that is the only thing. I mean, we've been talking about Cincinnati Fear. They like to play through their lanes. So, Trance, when we're looking at these lanes for Cincinnati Fear, where can we maybe attack to get a meaningful advantage?
If I was Cincinnati Fear, I would definitely focus a lot of my resource towards that bot lane. If you're able to unlock Sketch and Plux, they'll definitely take over the game. With the rest of the top side, these guys are very competitive top side, so as long as they're able to hold their own, we can really see that kind of shift where our bot lane's able to move up towards the rest of the map and really be able to open that up.
Right. So basically, if Jake's Kittens, or excuse me, if Cincinnati Fear is able to hold their own against Jake's Kittens in every lane and put meaningful resources towards their bot lane, we think that Sketch can possibly recreate the performance that was had yesterday, maybe?
100%. 100%.
100%, yeah. And I mean, hey, it worked against Maryville. It could definitely work against this team. But RMC, I feel like I know what you're probably thinking. That's going to be easier said than done, because Jake's Kittens has a very, very, very good mid laner that's going to be staring down Blaze. Of course, it is Ryoma, the man with a lot of experience, and a player that I feel like facilitates this team so much, not only with experience, but also with talent. And so, if we are Jake's Kittens, how are we looking to sort of maybe shut down that Cincinnati Fear game plan?
Well, Hawk, you did, kind of read my mind there. Like I've said before, I think Ryoma's potentially the best mid laner currently in PGCQ. And with Aaron, we weren't seeing his aggressive carry style as much. He acted a lot as a facilitator, as a partner to Aaron to enable Aaron's more aggressive style. But I think if you don't have that jungle carry, I think Ryoma can step up and be a carry within his own right. And Trance was talking about, the bot lane, Sketch, Scoop, Prismo, Plux. Well, it doesn't just have to be the jungle who goes down there to influence that. If you think back to Ryoma in Spring, he played a lot of Twisted Fate. Globals are a thing. Talia's in meta right now. Ryoma could influence that bot lane just as much, if not more, than the jungles.
Yeah, very true. And we have already seen it so far in the Proving Ground circuit. Ryoma, basically every time he gets shoved in a lane, it feels like he's hovering down in bot river to unlock Prismal, to play around Aaron, and by extension, get scooped to those team fights. So definitely something that we will have to keep our eyes on. But finally, gentlemen, we've got, I feel like, one more lane that we would be amiss not to talk about, because we've got a collegiate champion up on the top side. Of course, you know, we talked about how Team Pending, they've got the 3-man core of that UST roster, but Porsche on the top side, the top laner for Jake's Kittens, absolutely smurfed it throughout CLOL. I got to watch it live in the studio. It was a lot of fun. But up against Dragoon, a player with a lot of pedigree, has been around the amateur scene for a long time. Trance, is there going to be any sort of edge on this top side? Who are we expecting to come out on top here?
I think Dragoon is a great player, but I really have to give it to Porsche. He's coming off a massive win. This dude is on fire, and you're going to see him pop off the set 100%. Dude, this dude is crazy. It's going to be so fun to watch him.
Yeah, I love that so much. I feel like mental diff could really be a thing. You know, coming off a championship, that's got to imbue you with a lot of confidence. It definitely, I feel like, could be a difference maker. But as we sort of look holistically now at these teams, we've sort of covered each of the individual lanes. RMC, I want to direct this towards you. Is there one point where we feel like will really tip the scales one way or another? I don't want you to give me your prediction yet, but you know, one maybe mismatch, one advantage that we're really looking for either Cincinnati Fear or Jake's Kittens to be able to get in this game that will be difficult for their opponent to overcome.
Okay, I think both teams will have a different point of attack that they'll want to look at here. Cincinnati Fear, we talk so much about the bot lane because of Cincinnati Fear, because of Sketch Dreams and Plux here. So I think that is their angle into it. We saw it yesterday as well, specifically against Maryville, right? Sketch can take over a game. So to me, that's Cincinnati Fear's way in. For Jake's Kittens, I'm going to say expanded a little bit more than just Ryoma here. It's going to be Ryoma and Dunks in the jungle, because if they can get off to a better start here, you know, we're talking about new junglers for both teams. Yes, it might hurt Jake's Kittens' coordination a little bit more, but hey, if they can just hold down the middle of that map as well, you can isolate Sketch and keep him just in the bot lane. Hey, then I think Jake's Kittens, they'll be able to take over more of the map with that mid lane control.
Yeah, so choke Cincinnati Fear out of the map and try to take over the game will be the name of the game. We'll have to see if it's able to come true. But now about 3 minutes until draft. Gentlemen, I know we've all made some predictions. It is time to put ourselves on the line. Get ready to be flamed by Twitter. Trance, I'm going to you first. I think you called it earlier. Who we taking?
Jake's Kittens 2-0, baby.
Just like that. Easy peasy. I like it. RMC, what about you?
Yeah, I kind of went with Jake's Kittens as well. Not quite the 2-0 though. I went with the 2-1. I think there's a chance for Fear here, and I believe in, you know, the Sketch Dreams supremacy. Pardon me here. I think they can take a game off like a incredibly smashed bot lane.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in agreement with you, RMC. I'm also taking Jake's Kittens 2-1. You know what? I wasn't super high on Cincinnati Fear coming into this week, but then their performance against Maryville yesterday, I was actually really impressed by. Yeah, it was a little sloppy, but I think we can kind of expect that from this team. But what is a constant of this team is that they have 5 just super, super good players, and I'm sure Goo coming in won't really change that. So I'm agreeing with you. I think that the heroics of Sketch Dreams or anyone else on this roster could let them take a game, but the experience and overall talent of Jake's Kittens will be probably something of a difference maker. But before we, you know, go into the draft and get over to the casters, I want to go back and Trance. Just any final thoughts about the series, anything that we should be expecting before we get in?
I really want to see how they work their bot side, man. Like, having these 2 bot lanes come together and having the whole top side kind of facilitate that, we're going to see an explosive match for sure.
For sure. RMC, anything from you?
I kind of want to see Jake's Kittens just flex their muscles a little bit here. I think they've got really strong laners in all their lanes, and because of this E substitution here, if you can't rely on coordination, well, now's the time to flex, and if you can win lane, I think you can win game.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, hey, if there's anyone I've seen play Enchanters like an absolute Giga Chad so far this tournament, it's definitely been Prismal. This guy plays Nami like it's Nautilus, and it's kind of insane. So, I feel like it could totally happen. Try to flex your muscles, get an advantage in game 1. We'll have to see if that's able to happen. But we want to hear from you guys as well. It's not just our opinions that matter. If you're out there on Twitter, out there watching, make sure you tweet #WeAreUnified. Get your tweets featured on stream. Give us your hot takes. Give us your bold predictions. Let us flame you back because, man, that would be fun. No, but in all seriousness, make sure you tweet that #WeAreUnified just so we can hear from you and get some opinions. But we're so close to this draft. We've got an amazing series queued up for you guys. It's Jake's Kittens. They're going to be on the blue side in this series up against Cincinnati Fear on the red side. We're going to toss it over to Pyrotechnics and Rebel Fox to get into game number 1 of this quarterfinals match.
Thank you very much, Hawk. We are ready to rock and roll. We may have had ourselves a little bit of a vacation. I know I'm coming into you live from the beach, but we are about to get into Champ Select for this quarterfinal match. Jake's Kittens, very, very hot in this tournament, Rebel Fox, and I am so excited to see how well they do up against Cincinnati Fear, who have just clawed and scraped and shown absolutely no fear themselves. This is going to be a banger.
We knew how big of a scrap it was going to be for the side of Cincinnati Fear, working their way through the group of death. They had to get through, first off, the Banana Slammas. How can you not remember DK Crew? And then getting through Maryville, who beat them to put them into the realm of death situation. Now they're up against Jake Kittens. It's another mountain to climb, which is a tough one. Jake Kittens is a fantastic team. The double sub-junglers obviously throws a big wrench into things today, but I know for a fact that it's going to lead to only more excitement between these two teams.
Yeah, we really talked about how the substitutions, the emergency substitutions affected or will likely affect the play styles of both these teams, because in particular for Cincinnati Fear, you know, they don't necessarily need to rely on that jungler to do quite as much for them, it seems. And I'm really excited to see how this change actually lets them play in and around the lane state versus what Jake's Kittens has to bring.
Yeah, Jake's Kittens, I mean, they're replacing a very, very big piece. Aaron was incredible, had a lot of damage share, had a lot of carries that were played to very well by the fact that he had strong lanes, and now you're bringing in a very young, basically, you know, Kane player coming into the jungle, stepping in for basically the first time in competitive. To be able to fill those shoes is kind of incredible. I remember it was 2021 summer, we had a similar situation where Bluster had stepped into that for EGP, another Kane player, another very young player who stepped into a very rough situation and was able to actually very much impress on their opening day statement games. And so hopefully maybe that's something that we'll get again in today's games when we have this replacement.
Yeah, you know, curiously, because we did hear from the desk at the end, like, how Cincinnati Fear could, like, you know, find those advantages, find those ways in, and how the jungler change could enable them to maybe do something a little bit different. I kind of am excited to see what Goo in particular can bring to this lineup. It's funny because this is a jungler that they beat in the open qualifiers, and we're like, you know what? We'll take that guy. We'll give him a try, see what happens this time. And yeah, I think we could see like maybe a number of jungle one-on-one face-offs, but that isn't the main story for these two teams. Even if it is the big story that's come in late because they've had to make those emergency changes, I think we do want to talk about that bot lane because everybody was hyping up Sketch for very good reason. That matchup against Maryville, absolute pop-off, even in the losses, and I think that says something.
And goodness gracious, do I love the love triangle that we have between these bot laners right now, because, you know, you're talking about Cincinnati Fear having been built upon the bones of no team from the previous split. They used to have Scooped on their team. They replaced him with, Sketch, and Sketch has stepped into a meaningful role yesterday, had some great performance to really put this team into a different bout. But now Pluck's support on that team has to stand across from Heartbreak. Scooped, who stepped out in the last split, playing on Jake's Kittens, having an amazing split so far on this team, and having some great statistics with the rest of that squad as a whole. What is Plux to think, man? He's dealing with his current, he has his ex across from him. What would your feelings be like going into that one, Pyro?
I'd be so stressed out. I mean, first of all, I already have like mad social anxiety, so I would look at that and just be like, I don't even want to lock in right now. But yeah, I mean, that's a tough situation to be in, right? Like, on one hand, you know what your old flame will do, right? At least in a number of situations, they haven't changed that much, you'd have to think. So it could give you an advantage. But on the other hand, there's the mental factor of having to play against somebody that you spent so much time with, have so much rapport with. It's got to feel like a betrayal, Rebel Fox. I think the genre that this matchup should be from the bot lane, honestly should be rom-com the way I'm going with it.
I agree with that. Especially you consider the supermodel that is Prismal, who stepped into the support role for Scooped.
Yeah.
You have to imagine that relationship is going great. Prismal, he can play for Scooped, but he plays for his entire map, man. He is all over the place. He stepped in from a couple of splits on Academy out of the ADC role. He goes hands diff with every single other player, every single other support out of that support role, and he's been a beast. He has highest kill participation on his team for a reason. He is everywhere on the map.
I mean, this is what you could expect from a player that has that killer instinct as a former AD carry, right? I mean, that's the thing, is like he still gets to try and play it even if he swapped to the role. Like a lot of supports that role swap usually come from like a mid lane or some other role, but you know, it's sometimes you never quite lose that killer instinct. And he didn't exactly have to switch out of what lane he's operating, but decided to move to the rest of it. Now we are just waiting to ready up in the draft for game number 1. It's kind of heightening the tension, if anything. But Rebel, I know that the way we talked about the way these teams play, all emergency substitutions aside, Cincinnati Fear definitely feels like a much more volatile squad, but I feel like it's difficult to pin down what they can do because of that.
It feels like a lot of their early game is what their basis is on. Even yesterday, it took Sketch having some really good performances in the earlier phase of the game to get himself off onto a good foot, then ganking towards that lane, getting early action. It's what Trickster is really good at when you're able to kind of act as the compass for your team. I know that we talked about that comparison at least a little bit. Now with a new jungler, it's a question of how much that early game is still going to make as much of an impact. When you've got players like Dragoon and Blaze in your solo lanes, they're very talented. They're capable of generating some leads, but it's a tough team that you're playing against. And now with the new jungler, how much impact can you have? How much reliance do they truly have in that early game? This is going to be the litmus test. This is going to be the what does your adaptation look like when you have to play a different style potentially?
Yeah, and I think that's a tough ask, especially up against a tough squad. Jake's Kittens coming in here, definitely looking like the favorites. And also, while we did talk about how there is power in those solo lanes, that is also true for Jake's Kittens. You look at the side of poor CLOL Champion there as well. And then, of course, Ryoma. It doesn't get much harder than this from an experience standpoint. Ryoma had LCS experience going back like last year even, when he was playing on that stage, and has been on several Academy rosters, not to mention his experience prior in the OPL. I remember casting this guy back in 2018. I mean, at an amateur level, that is a lot to contend with. So Blaze is going to have his work cut out for him. But we are into picks and bans. We see the Lucian. We see the Karma taken off the board. Talia and the Lilia ban. This is, of course, hitting the new jungler right there on the head with the Nerf bat, or excuse me, the ban hammer.
Just as fast as possible. The Kane's still available, though, in case that wants to come through. That is Dunk's one trick. I'm having a little trouble seeing the band, so I'm going to... that's a lot better.
You got to take at least one pair of glasses off. I know it's bright out there, Rebel.
Truly. Especially with these two teams. Nothing but brightness coming between the two of them as we're waiting for the final band to come out. I like that they know that the Lucian is super powerful. They understand Ryoma can play it, Scooped can play it. They're not going to give that one over. The Wukong as well for Dunks. Again, comfort and one of the most strong champions on the patch, so understanding they don't want to just give him blanket power. And I do wonder now if Jake's Kittens are willing to just give him the Kane as fast as possible. Maybe not being one, maybe they want to prioritize something else, but certainly keeping some comfort for your brand new jungler, especially somebody as young and inexperienced as Dunks, might be helpful. Again, Bluster was able to do it in the previous split. I have to think some kind of reparation is going to be necessary for that to make sure that comes through.
Yeah, possible. And they may end up handshaking on it, though, because the Gangplank is the one that does come through on the Cincinnati Fear side. We will get that Senna lock-in right off the bat. So are we going to go ahead and see what it's paired with if they just fill out the full bot lane here for Sketch and Plux?
Yeah, it's nothing too crazy. It's one of the most powerful bot lanes, and you challenge the side of Jake's Kittens to see what they've got in the wheelhouse to actually handle this. One of the most common is like seeing Nami, seeing Lucian being able to attack it directly. I know also Kog'Maw with a Lulu, something along those lines, always is in comparison as well. This is the interesting one to me. I remember talking about this with a couple of coaches, and I remember it was Korea that came up with this strategy where they picked Samira and they just immediately all in. They just fight as fast as possible, and it's that sounds like a Korean hands diff coming in from the bot lane. Maybe that's the idea. But Scooped and Prismo feeling confident enough against that other lane, against Plux, that breakup X right now on the side of Cincinnati Fear, that they are willing to take it this quickly in the draft, the Samir Nautilus combination.
There is apparently no love lost there, because they are going to be getting into the action quite quick. Samira Nautilus, bot lane v bot lane, is going to be locked with the Cinnakench on the opposite side. And I do think that is going to be the explosive matchup to watch, but we still have plenty more picks and bans to go. Rotating back over to Cincinnati Fear now to see what they opt into. Will we see either of the junglers, the new junglers, emergency substitutions, getting their pickup, or will we in fact see a solo lane Dragoon hovering on the Darius? No surprises there. The former one trick going to try to take it all the way for the win, and it's going to get locked. Twisted Fate's going to be that ban off the list.
See, it was really crazy because yesterday, Fear was playing against Maryville, and everybody knows about Miles' Gangplank in the top lane. It's so feared. They didn't really play it that often, even though they were banning the Gangplank. They were giving it away, and eventually it ended up getting picked in the series. It didn't work out too well. Porch also has an amazing Gangplank, but not banning the Darius means that you have the potential for that matchup. Now, for Dragoon, it has to be something comfortable. He has to know the matchup just about as well as possible, because again, his Gangplank is also good. But for some reason, Maryville kind of shied away from this champion as of yesterday, so it's of interest to me whether Cincinnati Fear actually has some sort of strategy, some way of planning against it, or if yesterday that was just a little bit of a mark missed, and maybe the Gangplank could have been a pressure point that Maryville applied more to Cincinnati Fear. I guess Dragoon, he gets a chance to show us what his Gangplanks, or my apologies, his Darius is capable of doing.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. It's a signature for a reason. It's a lot of power. There is a lot of pop-off potential, but of course it's risky, and that is kind of a hallmark of the playstyle of people that pick things like Darius. Now, in the bans, we do see 3 out of the last remaining 4 were all targeted at that mid lane. Clearly, they want, on the Cincinnati Fear side, to try and give Blaze a little bit of a break compared to some of the more power picks. I mean, they're more control mages, more roaming-oriented, try and shut that down. But they will save their mid lane pick for last, because Goo is going to get the Kindred lock-in. This was one of those champions that's been floating around. No Kayn, but the Kindred, that is a lot of damage Fear's starting to pack on that roster.
It really is. And Goo was known for 2 champions. He was kind of known for Zac back in the day, which was funny because of the Goo reference, but also Kindred was something he picked up when he was on 100 Thieves, playing around in some of the aggressive one-to-one matchups. This is interesting from Dunks, because a lot of times, I know that Kindred sometimes like to play into Graves because your ability to, you're mobile, you're able to hit him from further away, especially once the stacks come through, to the point where Kindred sometimes can get very aggressive into Graves specifically. Dunks just going for the Graves anyway into the matchup, not feeling fear against Goo's Kindred.
Not at all. I think this is going to be an interesting one. We'll have to see how the 2 junglers do mesh with their teams in the moment. In the mid lane, of course, just kind of going for a little bit more of a sit back and relax, more of a handshake. I do think it's not quite as safe for Blaze as you might otherwise look at these 2 champions, because Ryoma definitely can go in there on a package Valk and maybe try to make the play into a victor, maybe even earlier in the game. But I do think the bottom lane matchup is going to be one to watch. The top lane matchup is going to be one to watch. And of course, where the junglers go, so will go the early action.
Yeah, it's interesting because we do have a lot more farm potential from Dunks to begin with, and his lanes don't have the most setup. When you've got Gangplank, when you've got Corki, you have Nautilus to help, which tells me that Jake's Kittens want to play to their bottom side. Fear apparently have gone away from that, even though yesterday that was kind of the big reason why they were overcome the Maryville hurdle, was playing into their bottom side. Instead, Goo has a lot of lanes that could be played to very quickly, or you can focus on farming, you can focus on the one-on-one against Dunks, and maybe that's Goo's whole intention here, is if you can get early push for Victor, if you can get early play for Darius over top of the Gangplank, then Goo can kind of run wild over Dunks, and there's not much that Jake's Kittens are capable of doing about that. There's a lot of to and fro on the balancing act of this early game that Fear previously have had to have in their back pocket to work with in the beginning of the game to actually come out with big wins. Here it seems like they're comfortable in a different, a kind of different style if they wanted to. Goo, their jungler, they've put a lot into in a draft like this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? Anytime you do have somebody subbing at the last minute, if it's an emergency situation, you always wonder if the person subbing out was kind of a big part of your early game strategy, like we know that Trickster was. And what are you going to do in that particular case? So clearly they picked up Goo for this particular purpose, but they're trying to give him some resources, give him some opportunities to try and make those plays, and give him a heavy damage dealer as well. I think it's interesting. It's different. I don't think Jake's Kittens could have really prepared for it, and that is one of the reasons that it could very well work. On the Jake's Kittens side, they're very happy to just kind of fight it out. This is a team that is incredibly scrappy, but I do worry that, honestly, for both these teams, I think the 5v5s are maybe a little scuffed. It's, there's a little more tankiness on the Fear side. You look at the Tom Kench maybe, but I think dives could get very bloody very fast, Rebel.
It's crazy because like Jake's Kittens have ways to like go in really quickly and they can kite backwards out of fights, and the go buttons they have is really like Nautilus, and then like Samira can also jump in immediately. She doesn't have CC, but she's got damage for it. On the other side, it's Plux as well. That's pretty much what you've got for CC in defense. It almost feels like they're going to be playing a game of chicken for who wants to engage, because the other team wants to run away backwards as much as they can. So whoever is running at the other team feels like the one that might be having problems. So I'm much more interested to watch positioning of these teams as they prepare for fights, prepare for flanks, and things of that sort.
Yep, I am excited to see who can get the edge over the other here in this best-of-3 quarterfinal match. The winner will move on here in the Proving Grounds Summer Circuit Qualifier number 1 as we load up onto beautiful, scenic Summoner's Rift for the start of this matchup. Mid lane, Ryoma, very storied player. He's always been a solid generalist, I think. I don't really associate a single champion pick with him because over the seasons, he's always been able to adapt to it well, and I think that's what makes him so hard to ban out. So trying to ban the strong champions, the ones you don't want to deal with, that makes sense from a Cincinnati Fear side. Let's take a look at our summoners to kick things off, though. Dragoon going for that Ghost Flash compared to Porsche with the teleport. In fact, it will be a permanent teleport advantage.
It will. I find it really funny. One of the last times I saw Dragoon, he actually went for triple rejuve bead, which is just like, what are you supposed to do? You just have permanent sustain on Darius.
Guess I'll die. Guess I'll not play League of Legends this game. It's a good thing you can't do that anymore, right?
No, you cannot, or at least not as well as you did before.
You could, but why would you?
Yeah, why would you? Now, it is more interesting, I think, also because he's going to be taking harassment from the gangplank very quickly in the game. You take the Qs, you take even trial by fires that they do help very quickly in the game for Porsche if he wants to play aggressively in like the level 1-2 area before Dragoon gets the full combo. He's able to do anything else, which is why the Doran shield has to come out in this phase, because you take free damage, you get free health back, and you're not that worried about it, and you threaten the positioning forward on that lane. He's actually in lane pretty quickly, waiting to try to surprise Porsche. Wow, he got a whole Q on that lane for free, which is going to start a push, I think. Maybe he wants a 3-wave just to try to get a little extra armor into the gangplank to start off the lane.
Yeah, it's got to be something we have to keep tracking throughout this game, and also if like Goo ends up heading up there right now, is going to be going into Jake's Kittens jungle and starting off on the blue, like pretty fast start to this one. And I think if this isn't read by Dunks, I mean, we could end up in 3-buff territory. That'd be a great start here for Cincinnati.
This is such a quick move from Goo to actually accomplish this. That's really rough.
Yeah, that's Ryoma.
It really is. Yeah, the last time this mid lane matchup does change that, because like if it does get spotted out eventually, like Dunks can easily walk in because Corky's got the health bar for it now to be able to actually push forward. It's bot lane to hit level 2 first and get a little action, nothing too crazy. So now again, mid lane might be pushing for Jake's Kittens. That bot side could be defended though by Sketch and Flux. So that means Goo again can continue to just go on this rampage, taking camps away from the top side of Dunks, who still has yet to find him in that jungle. He doesn't know his camps are gone yet.
And he's about to find out, but it's too late right now. You can even see Goo looking for a gank. I mean, it should just result in, like, maybe a little bit of harassment, and there it's going to be. Like, he's not going to be able to get the kill off just yet, but, man, what a great start for Cincinnati Fear's jungle. And Dunks is just like, wait a minute.
Oh, no.
We've been had.
Camps are gone. Ooh. Okay.
Force the flash. It's flash for flash. I mean, you know what? I feel like if you're Dragoon, you take that because you've also got Ghost.
Mm-hmm. You have Ghost, you're 100% comfortable with that in the laning phase, you're fine. The TP from Porsche isn't going to help him in combat anytime soon. I was more interested because, like, Dunks was going to end up on top side. They didn't see Dunks end up on the top side. It's possible Goo had read that they actually went to fold vertical jungle, and Goo is just now finding out that his top side, or his blue side, is available, is under the tower.
And we got first blood. All right, that might be the start of something here. Cincinnati Fear getting first blood, going to be getting a 3 buff as well. Jake's Kittens were not prepared.
It felt like Goo punished this really well. For Cincinnati Fear to come out with like literally an emergency substitute jungler, and to have that kind of a game plan where you now get 3 buff, you take an extra camp, and you get top push enough to where like your jungler doesn't respond. Dunks wasn't there to help on the defense of Porsche. Astonishing that they got that much.
Yeah, and look at this. It's 3v2 right now, but it was actually quite of a long bait that meant Prismal took a lot of damage, a lot of harassment from both Sketch and Plux here, and they've been able to hold him off. I mean, this is one of the things you can do with the Sonic Kench bot lane. Goo hasn't even had to get involved. Honestly, this is like full-on luxury jungling.
It really is. He just gets everything that he wants across the map. He was even able to split crabs in the grand scheme of things. Like, the fact that this much has gone over to Fear has kind of been miraculous. And again, the trade-off is, I think you'd want to end up on bottom side, which is why Dunk showed up down there. But the defense of that Senna Tahm Kench makes it difficult to find that aggression. Yes, I know I talked about how, like, you know, Scoop and Prismal might be looking to aggress in the 2v2. That doesn't make it easy to actually accomplish, especially in the early levels of this laning phase where they just have all this innate healing, all this innate defense to work with. So far, Cincinnati Fears, their game plan has gone about as perfect, I think even better than they would have ever expected it to, with those camps going over, with that top side kill going into the pocket of the Darius, bot side not really having to burn anything in their own defense. Really, really self-sufficient across the map for Cincinnati Fear.
Yeah, it's just looking like a great start right now. And obviously, you know, as this game goes on, you know, you can expect like things like the Gangplank to start to scale, and it becomes a bit of a problem if Dragoon doesn't get the full shutdown. But getting the first blood, burning the flash earlier, forcing the teleport as well, all things are good starts. And critically too, Blaze, yeah, he's getting poked out a little bit by Ryoma right here, and he's trying to bait him into dunks, and you got to be really careful about that. But Goo is coming to the backup. Actually, kind of dodges accidentally on the smoke screen before flashing away, but it's Ryoma that takes more damage from the Death Laser. Meanwhile, down to the bottom, Prismal. Whoa, they were just like ships in the night, and I don't think Sketch was prepared for that play. That will be the kill. No! The heal finally! Scooped gets it, and a bit of a misplay down bottom does net Jake's Kittens a kill in return.
Yeah, it was just they were trying to find it back, I guess, for Sketch and Plux. They walked off the wave, and Plux just committed to the full back timer here. You could see he was in his brush. They didn't care. Just flashes immediately. I think maybe thinking that you know, Sketch wasn't under fear of actually dying. This is the kind of aggression you'd want to find everything that you can into the opposing you know, bottom lane to get scooped into a position on the Samira where they can just constantly fight. It's a bit of a misplay. You do already give up the dragon one way or another. If you take that back fully as Sketch and Plux, they can't really walk up to the wave, so that's not that big of a deal. All it means is that the other side of the map has opened up so much more for Dragoon. He gets a plate off of this as well. So it's a trade of gold for that early objective control. We talked about this as, I think our desk even mentioned it, that Cincinnati Fear will oftentimes sack some of the early objectives to make sure they can go after a gold lead. Just started off a little bit here. You know, 600 gold here or there. Really good place for the Dragoon to be right now in the Darius matchup. One of his absolute favorites.
Certainly the case. Definitely showing why he's made his name on it. Pretty decent CS advantage, keeping Porsche on the back foot of this one. And Prismal's been roaming around trying to look for some counterplays. Doesn't manage to find one up topside right now. And we do have to keep our eyes on what the junglers are doing as always. Goo, so far, just having a much better time after that fantastic start to the game. Dunks has not really been able to have the same level of impact for his team for the time being. And oh my goodness, Ryoma comes back with quite a lot of swords. Blaze is reading some books instead. I mean, it's all about those components.
Goodness gracious. He
Where
just
does he put them all?
He puts, well, I think you need at least a Caulfield and an additional longsword for the Monomune, so there's that.
Okay. I mean, this is good positioning, like Plux just face tanking everything on that Tahm Kench right now, buying time for Goo to come through. Oh, the lick does not land onto Dunks.
Oh.
And this extended 3v3 as he goes for the dive in. Prismal's isolated from the team. From downtown, Porsche lands the cannon barrage, and Ryoma on the roam. I think the numbers just don't work out for Cincinnati. They've got themselves a Lamb's respite, but how long is that going to last? Through the heel, the pull-in on the hook. Good night, Lux. And it was a hard-earned victory, but Jake's Kittens walk away with the kill.
It was so interesting because Fear had an easy break on this circumstance. They were able to leave pretty quickly in that, and they re-engage off the back of Plux saying, or somebody calling right there, that they could continue forward, try to find a punishment into Prismal, try to maybe fight the rest of this bottom lane, but it doesn't work out at all like they think, mostly because of Porsche's ultimate coming through and helping them, the rest of his team actually get a place to fight.
I love this adaptation. I love this adaptation. Porsche just says, you know what? I'm not playing top lane anymore. We're roaming Gangplank now.
That's completely reasonable, too, after what's happened so far. He's down 23 CS, but if he helps his team out, that's all that really matters. I know RMC talked to us about this a little bit, that sometimes Porsche gets left on an island for the rest of the team. Feels like that happened a little bit in this game, but that's not without punishment elsewhere, right? He's able to use the cannon barrage, help that bot lane play in the mid lane, able to punish Blaze, who stands too far up, doesn't have support from the rest of his team, because they were all pushed off the bottom side. You can see that here. This is where Plux, he re-engaged. Now they're on top. Their retreat angle is cut off by by the cannon barrage. The health is already low from a number of different members. I know they have to be calling that they have the ultimate from the Kindred. They think that that's going to be enough. And on the full retreat, Flux just has to cover to make sure there's no extra damage to come through onto Goo. He's the target of affection for Prismal. The walk-up doesn't end up leading to anything. But again, there's no one on the map right now. Everybody gets shoved out. And that means that the move into Blaze is easy enough for the rest of this team. They just find him very, very quickly. It's a tough position to be in. Is Cincinnati Fear give quite a bit back. Their early game, that early start for Goo was enormous to kick things off. Unfortunately, not able to do anything with it, and Jake's Kittens kind of respond in kind.
Absolutely. I mean, I love the adaptation, start moving on the roam as well. It is worth noting that off-screen, Cincinnati did manage to pick up the Rift Herald as well. Meanwhile, we'll check back in with mid because Dunks steps a little too far forward into the Wolf's Frenzy. Here comes Prismal around the side. Oh, that's such a low health bar on the Graves, but he limps away. Blaze trying to walk it out as well, and Goo forced to flash that wall. I mean, Cincinnati showing no fear here as they continue to fight toe-to-toe. Dead even on the gold game, though. Worth noting, after that great start, it was pulled all the way back, and Darius plates have just kind of kept stacking as well. Jake's Kittens really equalizing on that bottom side.
Very easily, yeah. The response to that entire elongated play was that eventually Goo got to go for Rift Herald. He's going to get knocked up, but there's no play to actually be had here as Ryoma and Prismal just kind of fishing a little bit, looking to see if they can catch Goo out of position. But like you said, I think the biggest thing about this is there was a similar game to this, which is actually game one of Cincinnati Fear versus Maryville, where they traded a lot of bot lane pressure specifically for Dragoon's Gwen to pick up an unreal amount of gold to kick off a game. You know what happened? Dragoon carried the hell out of that game is what happened. And I do worry for the future prospects of this game that like he gets his Darius super comfortable and he's getting an unreal amount of gold. Now if Goo starts playing into this lane, Porsche is shut out and Dragoon has his chance.
Yeah, I mean, this is the strategy, right? Like, you called at the beginning of the game, like, okay, we're going to switch away from the bot-focused side, even though Sketch was doing so incredibly well yesterday, but now it's all focused topside. Because they got the Darius, Dragoon has been unlocked. They get themselves first brick off of the Herald charge, looking for another one. Jake's Kittens are going to try to react here, but it's a 2-on-2 at the moment, and into the river brush, into the try they go. And it's actually going to be Scoop that takes way too much damage off the back of it into the root. It doesn't matter. Pulls forward, and Scooped is going absolutely nowhere.
His supports just kind of trade positions right there between the two of them, making sure that they're going to go aggressive. But again, they're underneath of Fear's tower. They're underneath. They have a bunch of damage. They're very hard to kill with all the healing that they've got. You can see that if I put on my spectacles during the spectator break, it's only for show because I'm just watching with my normal eyes. So here, let me.
I'm full on committing.
Let me defend the veil really quick. Yeah.
There we go. That's great.
Yeah. These were on the whole time. Yeah. You didn't see anything. Yeah.
No, I will note that like that death of the Samira was so brutal that we actually couldn't show it. We have to tap back to us, and we'll let you know when it's safe to go back in. Because this is a family-friendly broadcast, and we don't want to show that kind of stuff. That should be illegal, really.
Absolutely should. We don't have the flashing device from the one TV show that I probably won't name directly, but all of you will agree to forget, and we will agree to
we didn't show it
instead. Yeah,
we can't show it. It's fine, but it happened. Just know that it happened because you can see Scooped is currently experiencing what we in the business like to call a gray screen.
Yes, absolutely amazing. And the trade-off of this, again, they want to get aggressive to bottom side. They want to try to get Dunks down there to punish Sketch and Flux, because you can see how much they are getting on the top side for Dragoon. Okay.
And Ryoma wants to shut him down right there. There was going to be the Noxian guillotine, and man, Porsche playing such a dangerous game. Oh, he goes forward to get the kill, and Porsche still can't take him down with the parley.
Dragoon played that so well. He was able to get 5 stacks, I believe, onto Ryoma, use the ultimate. It doesn't get the execute, but it shoves him out of the fight to start with, and then he gets 5 stacks with an auto-cancel immediately onto the other counterpart, so Porsche can't really step in. And it was actually the ultimate from Sketch that kind of did enough damage to really bring them down. But again, it's Cincinnati Fear who have enough gold on Dragoon topside to really do a bunch of damage, and they're not breaking on bottom side. That's the important bit. They aren't giving back the same thing that they're getting on the top side. It's not a zero-sum game right now, as Cincinnati Fear is really smashing with Dragoon on one side of the map. And I told you this, the warning is here for all other teams. They know how to swap sides, right? We saw yesterday they did it for Maryville, where they played into Sketch, and the previous time when they were playing into Dragoon, and Dragoon was able to do it. One thing that Cincinnati Fear has done this tournament, even with this sub-jungler, is adapt to the side of the map that they think is going to be powerful for this game.
And it's working out really well for them right now. Maybe even in the kill game, and there may be a dragon advantage for Jake's Kittens, but the gold says a different story here. Cincinnati Fear finding themselves up 1,500 at the 13-minute mark, and a lot of it in the pocket of Dragoon and his Darius. Stridebreaker on right now as he is looking to start running wild. I mean, make no mistake, Porsche in the late game is still gameplay, but it's going to be a while before it gets to that. I mean, look at the gold difference between the two of them alone, as Dragoon is the leading resource collector in this game so far. Just a massive amount of farm, all the plates, has had some attention from Goo, and you said it, Rebel. Critically, Flux and Sketch, they've held this line even 3v2 a number of times. Like, they know Dunks is here, they know Prismal is probably here as well, and they're just holding firm. That's their job this game, and they're doing it well.
I'm waiting for this because I think Prismal wants to try to find a Hex Flash over the wall, but it looks like he's... Okay, yeah, he's just now able to use the Hex Flash. They're pushing a little too far. There we go. That's going to be the play. I think they're... They don't pull the trigger! Oh, it's so sad. Flux does have the ultimate, is able to get out, also has the flash, which is easy enough to try to full disengage, and even with a good engagement, with those defensive tools available, it's hard to one-tap Sketch. You'd need Scooped to be mid-combat, basically, with those two before you really get the full-on engagement, and I think it's clear that the range disadvantage is something that's difficult to kind of manage as the Samira, to be able to start off the fight safely without really losing too much health to be able to walk back in afterwards. So, again, it's Jake's Kittens not comfortable making the really aggressive plays I think that they need to make this Samira work into the Senna. And the cross side of the map continues to get bigger and bigger. You can see, what is that, 42 CS for the Darius? And then you've also got like a 20 CS advantage for Goo as well. They're doing really well punishing elsewhere.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and they just have to keep playing through it, right? Because as long as they don't let Jake's Kittens claw any advantages back for themselves, they have this mid-game. It feels like kind of locked down right now. And like critically, like all the big tools, all the big threats on Jake's Kittens have been, if not neutralized, at least like their gains have been minimal here. Like Ryoma's 1-1-1 at the moment and has not built a significant advantage over Blaze. We identified that as a possible weak point here for Cincinnati Fear that could be overcome. And while Blaze did get bullied a little bit, he's been able to keep even on farm. He's been able to hold his tower at above half health. And Ryoma hasn't really been able to do anything more than that, even with some of Dunk's assistance. And let's face it, Dunks has just not had nearly as much effect on the map as Goo has, who is soloing Herald right now, and he's going to call Blaze over.
I love Goo. This is perhaps maybe some competitive experience because Goo's been around for some time. We already talked about, Super Sunshine Fruit Basket Warriors. Always remember that run that they almost made it happen when he was playing alongside, of course, the faker of NA and Drewdozer. But outside of that, he was also on 100 Thieves in a previous iteration of the squad. He was, way back in the day, he was on XT Curve Nation. He has competitive experience, and so stepping into this role, he understands some of the things that need to be done. Whereas Dunks is brand new, doesn't have that same kind of competitive experience. And maybe that is a little bit of the difference here. It's just Goo has a little bit better game sense than what his counterpart does, at least on the day. Not that that matchup is making the biggest of influence, but Goo clearly has an understanding of what needs to be happening on this map, and he's playing to it rather well. As he's picked up the second Rift Herald, they have sacked the first two dragons. I anticipate they might be able and raring to go for this third dragon. It's an Infernal Soul. 4-stack Infernal Soul is a terrifying prospect for this team to be able to get, especially because you definitely don't want Corki getting it. Ryoma with Infernal Soul would absolutely be the win condition that Jake Kittens need to really get back in and maybe even take the advantage in a game like this.
And Cincinnati Fear like to fight when they feel confident that they can win it, but Jake's Kittens are going to be trying to bring it to him right now. Ryoma does not have access to that teleport. I think he might have just picked up the package, so this is kind of the big play here, and it's going to open up with Prismal, but he gets rooted on the backside. Cannon Barrage through, trying to buy a lot of time for the team, but they are in absolutely no danger as Goo leading the charge. Blaze sending the laser around the side, and Ryoma, man, that is absolutely not same-day delivery because he is way too late to do anything for the team.
Ryoma burns the package just going after Blaze. I feel like it's a bit of a waste. They must have called completely off the dragon saying, we don't want to fight this, we don't want to play any more on this. And so he just throws it in just to put some additional damage into Blaze, maybe contest the mid lane a little bit. But that's Cincinnati Fear just muscling ahead of time, knowing they're able to actually take this, and Dragoon's not done.
I like how Dunks smites the red. Dragoon's like, that's fine, I'm just going to take it back away. It was Goo that did it at the end. Dragoon is absolutely having a field day. He does get hooked by Prismal, but there's not much they can answer. That's a 5-level difference. And yeah, just so many good things to talk about here for Cincinnati Fear. They're going to go ahead and let the Rift Herald do its thing down on the bottom side as they take firm control of this mid game. And got to credit the scouting. This is one of the big things for this Cincinnati Fear squad, that in their very early proving grounds, an amateur sort of foray here, they've got themselves a solid roster. Even in the substitution, PC Blaze does go down, but it turns into a 1-for-1. The best thing you could hope for like that is they're still down tier 2 bot.
Yeah, and this was what was confusing, because like they're making this play happen mid lane almost unnecessarily, trying to get just a 1-for-1, and now they're going to lose bot lane massively. Porsche might lose his life here.
He will. Goo is going to be able to take him down, and it just seems to be so many kills between the Kindred and the Darius here. They just can't fight into it, even in the 3v3. Sketch completely healthy, the hero of yesterday, up against Maryville. He's not even needed to do nearly as much this time, but they are landing some chains on, and Dunk's trying to do as much as he can. Flux into the backline, diving through, and the Krugs are getting involved in this one. Goo going on an absolute rampage, and they're trying to make something for it. Here's Scoop, but the team splits away, and he just does not get anything with the Inferno trigger. A triple kill for Goo.
And this entire time, Dragoon's been on the other side of the map, so like it's Jake's Kittens that are kind of
That's how you play Darius!
This fight. Yeah, that's how you play Darius on the other side. And what is Porsche gonna do? He's gonna walk up. Dragoon is more than happy to take that if he wanted to. He had flash, but instead he's just gonna walk away. He got more than enough damage on the tower. This was all off the back of, again, Cincinnati Fear tried to make a play mid. They traded, then lost 2 towers on bot side to then lose a fight on bottom side as well. This doesn't feel like the Jake's Kittens we've been watching the majority of this tournament. This feels like a completely different team. And Fear playing out of their minds after pushing for this. They kind of pushed in, understanding that Porsche has overextended himself slightly. He had some support, but slowed by Flux to kick things off. And then again, they've got damage in spades with Goo, a lot of range also with Sketch on this champion as well. And they continue back forward. This was the confusing part. Lamb's Respite is available basically this entire time for Goo. He's got the damage to work with. And look, like 2 of them go up as Scoop just completely walks out of the fight. It's so astonishing. Feels like the communication isn't there right now.
No, it does feel like they've been completely shell-shocked by not just the coordination, which I think was unexpected comparatively. Like, when you look at these two teams and the way that they've looked so far in their respective series, Cincinnati Fear have not looked quite as clean, not quite as coordinated. This game, they're looking incredibly good. We already knew that they were going to be able to hands diff a lot of people, but this is another level here as the Cannon Barrage comes down on the Baron. I don't think Cincinnati Fear are afraid. The last-ditch effort for Dunks to try and get the smite off does not succeed as we crest that 20-minute mark. A very early Baron, a massive snowball of a game, and it is just a full-on roam squad with the Dunk Master at the front. And Blaze will get the kill, scooped right into him.
Scattering in a million different directions. Porsche's on the entire wrong side of the map if they want to keep chasing him. I think it's a bit of a waste. They should pretty much only send 2, maybe 3 at absolute maximum. They will find Porsche. He's going to try to maybe execute to the tower, but he's not going to get it. Instead, Hugh's going to get him. And this is Dragoon who's going up to catch the next wave to make sure his time isn't just being completely wasted, as this is just a fruitless endeavor to get out of that circumstance right there. Cincinnati Fear coming out swinging. 21 minutes, 10,000 gold advantage is crazy. This team is possessed right now. There's a reason why Darius is perm against it. That wasn't the whole reason, but like they got away with a lot at the beginning of the game for topside. Jake's Kittens have a fair amount to consider when it comes to game number 2. I think one of the big things is, again, having that control, having that communication with their jungler, understanding what these matchups are going to look like and what you're allowed to accomplish. Because Cincinnati Fear definitely took advantage of that first clear, and they just continue to build it.
Yes, they did, and they just not let their foot off the gas pedal for this entire time. It's a 10,000 gold advantage, and it's not slowing anytime soon. You know, I start to struggle to look at what the win conditions become for Jake's Kittens, because everything that they built towards was to try and take the fight early on, and they just got stuffed over and over and over again. And their one late game edge there, the Gangplank, has just been so shut down thoroughly this game that it's going to be a long time before he gets back in. Sure, if you're able to claw back an Infernal Soul, that makes a difference for you. But the way that Cincinnati Fear are playing the map right now and the way they can throw their weight around, that is a very tough ask.
It's, to me, like one of the biggest things that they do have going for them is Corki late game is insane when he's able to drop rockets that do 50% of the health bars of anybody who's rather squishy. I love the Dragoon win Anathemas. I like the idea of potentially throwing it onto Ryoma so he can build exclusively armor. Still reduces all the damage coming out of the rest of the carries of the team, but also doesn't just get one shot by Corki missiles without having to waste an item for magic resist if he doesn't want to in that particular case. And Ryoma, again, I think doing the right thing, trying to salvage some troll, trying to get himself into a position where his damage starts to actually amount to something because Cincinnati Fear, like, they'll break with this Baron. They'll probably get at least a little bit of damage in the base. Unless they win a fight, they probably
they might just straight up take it. Yeah, talk about second objectives for the kills. They open up onto Prismal, and it's a double kill for Sketch. Everybody is grabbing some of those today on the Cincinnati Fear side. Dragoon just tanking through as they already have gotten 2 down into the package valve. Corky trying to cut them off here, but Flux is going to be stiff-arming the rest of the team. Lamb's respite between Goo and one of his allies here with the Chaos Storm chasing Dunks away. They don't even have to worry about the Corky Rebel because they're just taking down the base.
They kicked out. Ryoma did so much right there just to try to make things happen. I don't think Plux is going to be able to stop him, so he doesn't even bother doing it. But they're just going to walk directly underneath these towers, start trying to take them. I think they will have to wait for one more iteration unless, again, they're able to fish for a couple of kills. Dunks is going to go down.
Yes, he is, and Prismal Ryoma Scoop's going to be trying to hold the line right here in this one, but it's just such a great juggling of presenting targets on this, and even though they tried so hard to make that fight happen, way too little, way too late. At 24 minutes, that's all was needed for Cincinnati Fear to absolutely steamroll this game number 1 in this quarterfinal series. What a show of force.
Goodness gracious, it felt like there were so many times where, like, Cincinnati Fear were just like, wait a minute, we can punish them, and then they just did it. There were no ramifications, there was no revenge. It was overstepping in lanes, in fights, in everything from the side of Jake's Kittens. Again, not really what we expect from a team like this. We didn't get to see a ton of roaming from Prismal. We didn't get to see Ryoma really scale up to the late game. We didn't get to see Porsche really, take a slower approach to the game so that they could get past the gangplank. Instead, again, Fear just did everything in their power, every advantage they could have taken. They took with unrelenting force. An incredible first showing for them.
Yeah, this was one heck of a start, and I think maybe Jake's Kittens baited themselves a little bit in that draft phase by going so all in on the aggressive bot lane that just didn't pan out. And Dunks, I mean, I think that the way that he fits into this team is obviously very different than the way Goo is fit in, because the experience did start to shine through there, the competitive experience, but also just the map awareness, the presence. I feel like Dunks was kind of getting run around in circles there by Goo, and the 3 buff was kind of emblematic of it. Sure, there were a couple of mistakes that allowed Jake's Kittens to find some answers, but it was very, very little. It was very limited. And yeah, I want to really credit, like, on an individual level, everybody from Cincinnati did the job they needed to. Blaze held the line against Ryoma, even though he was playing a very aggressive Corky in the early game. They stopped Prismal from really getting anything off those roams. The bottom lane was able to completely stiff-arm their opposition every time, even in a 2v3 situation. And Goo basically just had free jungle camps until he was like, all right, I got level 6, let's start fighting. Not to mention Dragoon just got to play Darius, and that's why Darius gets permabanned, as you said. So, I mean, that's pretty much it on us. I want to see what the desk has to make of that game 1, because that was not how I expected.
100%.